Problem solving and values clarification. Hello and welcome to the Let Your Values Be Your Guide program. This is a 5-week program aimed to help people like you who are in cardiac and pulmonary rehab make meaningful and long-lasting lifestyle changes. We will accompany you on this journey where you will learn about your personal values or what's important to you and figure out ways to incorporate these in your day-to-day. You will also learn about practicing acceptance and compassion or kindness for yourself. With each topic, you will encounter something new, and we encourage you to approach the content and exercises with openness and curiosity. We will be there to help you in case you need any clarification or support. We appreciate you taking part in this program. One thing we know is that cardiac and pulmonary rehab is all about making changes. And sometimes those changes can be pretty difficult, especially when they don't necessarily fit with what's important to you right here and right now. Sometimes in life, we have other things that are going on that we would rather focus on or prioritize. So during this program, we're going to reflect on your goals and what's important to you and figure out ways to help you practice acceptance and compassion. Today we're going to be talking about problem solving and values clarification. During today's class, we're going to reflect on what's most important to you and talk about values and why they're so important. We're also going to learn to solve problems for times when we're feeling stuck so that you can get unstuck and cope with difficult situations as they come. As you may have already heard us talk about, cardiac and pulmonary rehab is all about making big changes. This slide is a review of some questions to consider and ask yourself, like when you're trying to figure out what values you'd like to focus on during this program. These changes may be what are values, especially if it's something that you've tried before. Personal values are your judgment of what is most important folks and fulfilling in your life. Not easy. Consider especially memories of times that you felt fulfilled, unpleasant enjoyment, or cause you some discomfort. What were you doing? Values guide. For example, why are those things so important? Exercising can cause you to feel out of breath. Ask yourself, or your heart to beat faster here and right now. And that could be scary and uncomfortable. Are the choices you were living hard to make changes you're making also when they don't fit with your personal values, valued activities, or what's important to you, if not, or what you're prioritizing in your life. We're going to problem solve later. Some examples and talk through ways that you can start building those things back into your life. Intimacy with a spouse or a partner. I want you to turn back to page 12 in your workbook. Playing with children or grandchildren. This is the page where we talked about being involved in community events, the buckets that you would like to fill, and exercising based on what's most important to you. Think of it like all of these valued activities help to fulfill. What activities help you fill your most valued buckets? Socializing with friends. Try and complete this activity. Intimacy with a spouse or partner. If you're having trouble thinking of values that you'd like to focus on, remember, turn to the back of the workbook and circle some values that are consistent with your experience. Going to work or being involved in community events. After you do that, may help you feel like you're maintaining your independence, activities that you can do, or being productive with those values. And maybe these are just some ideas to help you get started. For more examples, make sure to look in the back of your workbook. Ask yourself and try and circle some values that resonate with your friends, your family, community, and yourself. Now, I want you to reflect on if there's anything that you value or care about that you feel like you've put on hold due to your chronic illness. How do you want to see yourself, and how do you want others to see yourself? That can help inform. Try and look in the back of your workbook and decide which values you feel that you have put on hold. Thinking of your goals that actually are really important in regards to your health. And let's start thinking of ways to problem solve cardiac and pulmonary around building these things back into your life. That you can live a valued life. Try to dig a little bit deeper than just thinking of how cardiac and pulmonary rehab can help you improve your health. What else does rehab offer you? Now ask yourself, what is one activity that ties your personal values, something important to you, with your goals in rehab? Here's an example. Walking with family members can help you not only increase your exercise, but it can also help you spend time with family. So you see here that this one activity is able to fill multiple buckets, your health bucket and your quality time with family bucket. When you're dealing with a problem or a challenge, there are multiple ways that you can go about coping with those difficult experiences. Unhealthy coping strategies, like avoiding a situation, tends to feel good in the moment, but can have long-term negative consequences. In other words, we can't avoid something forever. And there are other ways that you can engage in unhealthy coping strategies that are listed on page 27 of your workbook. Healthy coping strategies may not provide instant relief, but they lead to longer-lasting positive outcomes. It helps you directly deal with the problem or help you deal with the feelings that come with dealing with that problem. Again, look at page 27 for some examples of healthy coping strategies. And look at the questions at the bottom of the page. Try to think about your own experience and what's been helpful or unhelpful for you in the past. Okay. So, when coping with difficult experiences, there's two types of coping that we're going to focus on today. Problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Problem-focused coping is directly working to solve the problem itself. Emotion-focused coping is working to deal with the difficult feelings that come with having a problem or challenge. This is especially helpful in situations where the problem may be sticking around for a while or is not easily solvable. And in other words, there's not really anything to do to make it go away, but we can change and work on the way that we feel about it and try to make sure that it doesn't have quite as much of a negative impact on our lives so we can get back to doing the things we care about. Much of the other talks that we have been giving and the talks that you will hear throughout this program are examples of emotion-focused coping. So today, we're going to focus on problem-focused coping, or working to solve the problem directly. There are many, many different ways that you can take steps to solve a problem that you're dealing with, and a lot of this will depend on what kind of problem you're dealing with. So for everyone, you might take different steps. Here are some examples of different steps that you can take to solve different problems. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but just some examples to help you get started in thinking about what potential solutions may work for you, depending on your problem. So for example, you can make a plan of action. Sometimes it's helpful to sit down, actually think through and analyze what's happening, and write down and gather our thoughts, a plan of action. Sometimes when we're dealing with a problem, it can be overwhelming to try and think of all of these things in our heads. So next time that you're feeling overwhelmed, try and write it down. Another example is asking other people how they dealt with a similar problem. So for example, other people who are going to rehab alongside you may be dealing with similar problems or concerns just like you. Sometimes seeking some support from them and asking how they dealt with a similar problem can be really helpful in informing what's going to be helpful for you. Ultimately, you might choose something different, and that's okay, but this can be helpful to get started. Another way you can use social support to help you solve your problems is by asking others for help. So every now and then, we all need a little bit of help in solving some problems. So trying to ask ourselves who are potential people that we can ask to assist us in whatever problem that we're dealing with. Keep in mind who you think might be the best person, and even if you aren't really sure who that might be, try asking somebody anyway. and see if they can guide you in the direction of somebody who could help if they can't. Another example is talking to your medical provider about things that you can do to improve your health. For many of you who are in rehab, you are here to help solve a problem that you're dealing with. Talking to your medical provider can help you decide things that are going to directly benefit you the most. And lastly, attending rehab to improve your health is also an example of solving a problem. You're taking steps to benefit your life. And inherently, that is problem solving. Try to think of some more examples. On page 28, there are some questions to help guide you in thinking of a problem that you're currently facing in rehab. Try thinking of how that problem affects your life and how it stops you from being the person you want to be or doing what you would like to do. Think of what your goal is and what actions you want to take to help solve that problem. And ask, why is that goal important? Why is it important to solve this problem? Now, let's think through an example of a problem that you're currently facing in rehab. An example may be you feel too tired to exercise. Maybe you think rehab is boring. Maybe you feel self-conscious about the way you look when you exercise. And lastly, maybe you don't feel like you have the stamina to exercise. It's just hard to keep going. There are many other examples of problems you may face in rehab, but these are just some examples to get you started. Try and think of your own problem that you're dealing with. Take a moment to summarize what the problem is or the challenge that you're currently facing is. Be as descriptive as possible. Now, take a moment to describe how it affects your life. What does it stop you from doing? What does it stop you from being? In other words, describe the impact of this problem and what it's cost you. Now, identify what your goal is. Ultimately, what would you like to achieve from solving this problem? In other words, what would you like to see as the outcome? Once you have something in mind, what are some specific actions that you can take to achieve that goal? Remember, be as specific as possible. You want to remember to know exactly when you've reached that goal. In other words, if these goals are on a checklist, we want to know exactly when we can check it off of our list. This can help us stay motivated and help us stay organized in our thinking when we're trying to decide what's going to be most helpful. And lastly, let's clarify the values that underlie your goal. What matters to you in the long run, and why are we focusing on this problem in particular? Your values, or what's important to you, can help guide you in making decisions and solving problems. And that's helpful when you're considering different solutions. In other words, it's going to be most beneficial to you if you're picking solutions that matter to you and you're focusing on goals that matter to you. Let's quickly run through an example. Here's an example of a problem that you've summarized. You used to be able to help around the house, but now you're less able to do so. Let's say that your family hasn't really stepped in to fill the gap yet either. Let's describe how that problem affects you. Let's say you're feeling a lot of stress and pressure to push yourself harder than you need to, and that makes it hard to focus on improving your health. Now, what are the goals? Let's say that you would like to ask your family for more help and support around the house. Specifically, your goal is to talk to your family today after rehab and ask if they can help you clean the house. Now let's clarify what matters. Why this goal? Why this problem? This goal is important because it helps you focus on your health and well-being. It helps to relieve stress by helping you receive support from others. And it helps you to communicate better with your family. These are all reasons why this is a good goal and a good problem to focus on solving. Sometimes the problems that we're experiencing may feel way bigger than what you feel capable of solving. And that is normal. We call that feeling stuck. That can sometimes happen if you just can't see what a possible solution may be, or you feel like you've tried a lot that just hasn't really worked. Again, this is totally normal. When you feel stuck or like a problem isn't going away, it can often be a sign that something needs to change in your life. Ask yourself, what is a problem that you have felt like it wasn't really going away? What are thoughts or feelings or behaviors that you were having that helped you to feel stuck or made things worse in the long run? Here's an example. Sometimes when we're feeling anxious or really stressed about something, our natural instinct is to avoid that situation. This is a normal human reaction. This can often happen in rehab. Sometimes when folks are making big changes in their physical activity, for example, their heart rate may increase or they feel out of breath. And those physical sensations do not feel good, and they can cause a lot of discomfort and anxiety. It's natural that you would want to avoid situations such as that. But let's think about how avoiding those situations keeps you stuck, keeps you from solving that problem. By avoiding rehab or avoiding physical activity altogether, sometimes that can serve to keep you stuck by making you not make as much progress as you normally would if you tried to go as far as you could. This is just one example of ways that thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can serve to keep you stuck in the long run. We want to normalize that change is sometimes scary. But, on the other hand, it's also necessary for getting unstuck. Next time that you're feeling stuck, or like a problem isn't going away, try the following. Try being present and willing to experience the bad and the good. Start with small changes. Start with the most small, basic step. Consider what's important. What are your values? And why is it important for you to figure out a way to solve this problem? And lastly, be kind to yourself. Remember, we're often our biggest critics, and it's important to remind ourselves to treat us with the same compassion that we would treat a good friend or a loved one, especially when we're feeling stuck. Here's a quick exercise to help you visualize what it's like to get unstuck when dealing with a difficult problem. Imagine that you're in a big game of tug-of-war with some big, huge monster that represents something that you're struggling with, like negative thoughts or feelings, on the other end of the rope that you're holding. You've got one end of the rope, and the monster has the other end. Now, in between you, there's a huge bottomless pit. And you're pulling backward as hard as you can, but the monster keeps pulling you closer and closer to that pit. What's the best thing to do in this situation? Pulling harder comes naturally, but the harder you pull, the harder that monster pulls. You're stuck. What do you need to do? How do you get out of this situation that you found yourself in? Dropping the rope means that the monster is still there on the other side, but you're no longer tied up in a struggle with it. Now, you've made a change, you're trying something new, and your hands are free, so now you can do something more useful. This is kind of like when you're solving your biggest challenges or problems. Sometimes we get so caught up in the struggle of trying to make this problem go away or avoiding it that we can't really see any other possible solutions. But by being present and by considering what our options are, you can let go of that rope and free your hands up to explore what your other options are. Remember, sometimes you're going to pick solutions that don't always work, and that's okay. The important thing is you made a change, you're exploring your options, and if a solution didn't work, you can always go back to the drawing board and try something new. Now we've reached the end of today's talk. In summary, when you're facing a problem, you can either take steps to solve that problem or learn ways to deal with the difficult feelings that come from having that problem. This can especially be helpful if you're feeling stuck or feeling like a problem just isn't really going away anytime soon. Your values, or what's important to you, help guide you in making decisions and solving your problems. That's helpful for when you're considering your possible solutions. Remember, we want to make sure that the problems that we're trying to solve are actually important to us, and the goals that we're setting are also important. That can help us stay motivated when we're trying to solve these problems. And when you feel stuck, remember, it's often a sign that something needs to change in your life. Your values can give you a good direction when thinking of small changes to help you start moving forward. Remember to always ask yourself, what's important to you right here and right now? And what is a small step that I can take in that direction? Remember, over the next week, to review your workbook and to complete any answers or questions on your phone or paper forms. If you have any questions, please reach out to one of our study team members and let us know. We're happy to help answer any questions you might have. Thank you again.